out with the baking demonstration. Go over, I have a couple ingredients just so you can see the health benefits of a couple of them that I have today, but there's a lot of them. So there's one of them is really packed with a punch of nutrition, you could say. And then we'll just go over some common muffin frequently asked questions as well. Does anybody though, there is a national favorite, but does anybody have a favorite they'd like to share?
Probably
Banana muffin.
Bananas always good, and blueberries.
Bananas and blueberries, yep. And Phyllis, what did you say? Yep.
I said blueberries.
Wow, blueberry, yeah. I mean, it's definitely the #1 muffin in America. It seems like everybody says blueberry. So very few, I haven't had one person say bran yet. So it's always something sweet, you know. And the bran muffins were all the rage. I haven't seen many recipes for that lately, but you can make them taste pretty good though. All right. So we're going to talk about that part later. And then I'm going to start sharing the recipes here. I have 2 different ones that have a whole different take on a muffin. The first one I'm going to do is more of a sweet muffin. It's a blueberry, so we've got blueberry, but with avocados. So blueberry avocado muffin. So it's a nice spin on it. It's not too strong of a flavor all around. It's a more mild muffin, but it's still blueberry. The avocado, when you bake with avocado, you really can't taste the avocado. And avocado has so many nutritional benefits. And it really adds a creamier texture to your baked good, like muffins and others. I've baked with avocados and brownies. So it's a really nice ingredient to put into your baked good if it's a recipe that calls for it. Don't shy away. Give it a try. So I'll start with that today. The next recipe after this one we'll do is a savory one. And we'll talk more about that after I complete this recipe. So I've already got the dry ingredients handy and all in the bowl here. So this one does call for white whole wheat flour. That's a flour I've used quite frequently in my demonstrations, and I'll go into more detail about that with the picture of the bag to look for if you can find some. But it's not as nutty a taste as the regular whole wheat flour, not quite as heavy, and it's a little lighter in color. So it does make your muffins look more normal, you could say. A lot of times people won't even tell you used this flour compared to your all-purpose. You can still, though, go half and half if it's just too much for you at once to try the new grain, because, you know, depending on your taste or your experience, you might think there is quite a bit of difference. So maybe you want to just start quarter in, half in, however you'd like to do it. I just go all in. I love this flour. We rarely use all-purpose, maybe for some sourdoughs. Last one I used bread flour. Actually, I don't really use all-purpose much. So anyway, so I've got just 2 cups of white whole wheat flour, some baking powder, baking soda, salt, and cinnamon is the spice in here. By the way, you'll get these recipes after class, so you don't have to worry about writing all this down or the exact amounts, because you'll get this after class with the class email. And it's just a teaspoon of cinnamon. I wouldn't mind upping that a little bit, because like I said, it is a pretty mild muffin. I'm not doing that today. You know what? Actually, I don't think I'm changing anything else today. So maybe I will. I'm going to add a little more cinnamon, because I don't like to change more than one thing at a time in my recipes. And this recipe was perfectly fine. So I'm just going to add a little more cinnamon and see if I like that better. So I'm going to put, well, I don't have the shaker part. So I'm just going to put my hand first. So in case I dump the whole thing out, right? Actually, I'm going to go about another teaspoon of cinnamon. We'll see what that does. And I'm just whisking it. I do whisk rather than stir. It does incorporate things better, does keep things lighter. So I do like to do that. So that's all set. Now I can smell the cinnamon. That's great. Okay, then we have, the recipe calls for 1 large ripe avocado. So that's kind of difficult, because when you go to the store, large can be a relative term. Sometimes you're not sure what large means. She didn't really give any more specifics. So I did see in the notes, though, that someone said, how much could you guess it was? And she said about a cup of avocado. For my avocados that I ever find, I never get nearly a cup of avocado. So last time I used about 2 medium, and that worked out just fine. So I'm going to do 2 medium. I waited to cut them in because I want them to get all brown. So I'm going to put them in here, I believe. Yeah. I used to have an avocado. Does anybody have one of those avocado scoops? So you can get that pit out easily. They're great. you can find one, they're great. We used to have them. I don't know. It's one of those things, who knows what happened to it. So I'm gonna make sure, yep. I'm gonna put it directly into this little stick blender I have here. That's all I do for my avocado. I just kind of squeeze it out of the skin there. That's a perfectly ripe avocado. That's perfect. So no dark spots I have to worry about getting out of there. And oh, my hand's a little slippery. I don't want to use a knife when it's slippery. Okay, go back here. Yep. Boy, these made, I think they timed perfectly, because timing the ripeness avocados can be tricky. Now this has a little bit of brown, not enough that I'm going to worry about it, especially because I'm baking with it. So we'll just put it in there. Yeah, actually, let me take it. There was a little bit more than I wanted in the center there. So just a little bit. The brown, and maybe it's a mental thing for me, but I actually do think it tastes a little more bitter, not as good as the yellow. So I do take time to get out some of that brown if it's just a little much. If it's just here and there, some spots, I just leave it in there. So let me make sure this is good to go. Yeah, I think I got all the major brown spots out. Okay, so that's good. We're gonna do that. My daughter tried growing an avocado with one of the seeds here, and it worked for a while, and then it just didn't. I mean, we're in the Midwest, it just didn't, it wasn't gonna fly. So that was fun to try. Okay, so we've got the avocado in there. Then we're going to, let's see, skip that in the butter for adds applesauce. So what we're gonna put in here is applesauce, the avocado, eggs, maple syrup or honey, and yogurt and vanilla, and blend it until smooth, all in here. Last time it fit, I was surprised, but it went just fine. But I have an apron on just in case. So I'm going to measure a third cup, I believe, of the, or half a cup of unsweetened applesauce. If you don't like to eat applesauce or, need applesauce much, but you'd like to bake with some, I find it actually more economical to buy them in these little cups so they last longer. Because applesauce, at least in our fridge, can get that mold pretty quickly. So I just started to buy cups. And that way I know one is a little under, it seems to be one is a little over a quarter cup. So I'm going to see if I can get a half a cup with about 1.5 of these. I did last time. I didn't keep my half cup out. So here's my half cup. There's that much. And this is unsweetened. They do have unsweetened cinnamon applesauce now, I've seen. So one of these days I think I'll try baking with that, see if that has a little more kick, a little more cinnamon kick. Okay, so I'm gonna put the applesauce directly in here. Really could use a liquid measuring cup for applesauce. It's like 2 large eggs. I'm gonna crack them in the separate bowl here. Make sure I don't get shells in there. Or that they're rotten. I've only ever had one rotten egg. Has anybody else cracked into an egg and it was rotten? My mom, she swore by that's why you should always make sure you crack them separately, but I've only had it happen once in my lifetime. But she wasn't wrong, it did happen. She was always worried about that though.
There is a way you can tell if it's fresh. It's something about put it in a glass of water, and if it goes to the bottom or it doesn't, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I read about that because I was wondering about my own eggs.
So there's okay, I'll have to look into that because that'd be more convenient, I think.
If they float to the top, they're not good.
Really? I wonder why.
Yeah, if you could put all of them that you have want to test in a pan of water, and whichever ones float to the top are not good.
Oh, wow.
And if they come from the same batch, I just toss them all out.
Yeah. Does that happen often? Do you get floating eggs once in a while?
Yeah, people that get eggs and don't really eat a lot of them, like me.
Yeah.
I've had that happen a couple of times. I throw them out immediately.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you wouldn't want to eat a rotten egg. That's good. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Here's, and I forgot, I am changing one other thing. I won't worry about it though. I did not have enough maple syrup, so I combined it just a little bit with honey, because you can use maple syrup or honey. Last time I used honey. I wanted to use maple syrup this time again, just to see if there was a little more flavor to it. And I was just short, so I just filled it in with honey.
Here comes sign, Ate.
What's that?
Ooh,
Or is that something?
I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. That wasn't for the muffin, huh? All right, so I'm gonna get the honey in there. I've got my little spatula handy. Get the rest of it out. It's getting pretty full, isn't it? Should I get some protective eyewear? All right, these stick blenders though, they keep things in pretty well. I was very impressed. I think we might still have some more to add here. We do. We've got yogurt and vanilla. Okay, so the yogurt, we only need a third a cup. Oh boy, third a cup here. I'll use this. Honey and vanilla. Oh, honey and yogurt is so good. So I don't care if a little honey gets in my yogurt. It's almost empty anyway. And I am using, I always have a disclaimer of 5% fat yogurt. I don't use fat-free yogurt. Very rarely, I should say. Sometimes that's all I can find. I do find a pretty significant difference in the texture and taste. So I'm willing to give a little fat into my, or put a little fat in the muffin there. They seem to last longer too. When I use a fuller fat yogurt, 2% is fine. This just happens to be 5% what they have there at the store. But I rarely use fat-free.
So how long will the muffins stay fresh in your refrigerator, and can you freeze them?
Oh yeah, definitely freezable in the refrigerator. If you want to keep them in the refrigerator, probably a few days. Room temperature, probably a couple days. The refrigerator will probably make them a little drier, but especially right now we're humid and 90s, so I would be hesitant to keep them at the room temperature, even when it's air conditioning on. It seems like still the humidity or something does something with the baked goods. And if you freeze right when they get to room temp if you can, because that'll keep them tasting really fresh when they thaw. So, and you could freeze probably up to a few months or so. So.
Awesome, because you usually make 12 and I don't need 12 like right away. So that's a good suggestion.
Same here. We have a special section in the freezer for all the baked goods. So, you can imagine I make a lot. All right, so here we go. I'm going to get this cord works. We're just going to blend this in.
I've bought an immersion blender. I haven't used it yet, but it looks like it's a lot more convenient than using a blender. Plus you can move the, so it's not just the blades on the bottom. I saw how you were moving it up and down.
That was just, there are just blades right on the bottom. I just move it up and down to make sure it's all getting in there. But it's just a little blade here that spins around. So I go to get it all. And it's so much more convenient. You can put this in the dishwasher. I never would have gotten one. I think I've told the story before how I got a free one with a hairdryer. The weirdest thing ever. Hey, I guess so. And I'm so glad I bought that hairdryer, because this blender, I use this more than the hairdryer actually. So it's been a really good luck there, really, because I had no idea.
Yeah, and easier to clean, I'm sure.
And easier to clean, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like the blade's so small and more contained, it seems safer to clean as well. Not that I usually just rinse. I rarely take a washcloth into the blade. I just do a really good hot rinse, but still it's just a little smaller blade to deal with. So, all right, now it looks like a smoothie, doesn't it? Here's your green smoothie for the day. Oh, I didn't add the vanilla. That's all right. I'll just quickly put that in there. Can't forget vanilla. That would definitely be a bad, for me, a bad muffin. I have to have vanilla. All right. So it's 2 whole teaspoons. That's a generous amount of vanilla for just 12 muffins. So I'm going to put that back in and see them at work again here. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Put that aside. All right. So then I think we're just about ready to just put pour the wet ingredients into the bowl right here with the flour mixture. Stir with a large spoon or spatula until no dry flour remains. Do not overmix. Big asterisk on that with muffins. Many things actually, but muffins you don't want to overmix because you're gonna ruin the texture. You'll get holes in it. You'll have little tunnels. It will be a tougher texture. So just until it's mixed, and that's why I really like using glass bowls, because I can look at the bottom to see how much flour is left, so I don't overmix trying to dig that way to see if there's flour to mix in. So if you have a glass bowl, I do like to use that for my quick breads and muffins, that sort of thing. And I think to mix.
So some little lumps are okay.
You don't really want lumps of flour. No.
Oh, okay.
No. That's why a whisk is good for that. That should help really get lumps. Yeah. In the beginning, if this is all mixed in really well, you shouldn't have lumps in here, and there shouldn't be lumps in here either. That mix. Yeah, look at that. Look how smooth that is. We'll have lumps when we add blueberries though. So, and that's okay. So that's the other thing. You've already got to mix it once with this, and then you have to mix it again or fold in blueberries. So you got to be gentle. And your muffins do come out a little green, but not much. I have some finished muffins in case we don't get to these. These should finish by the end of class. I'm not sure if the savory ones will finish, but we'll see. I have some savory ones already made up. It's a really, really light batter, really light texture. It's really interesting. That avocado just really lightens things up, it seems like. And the yogurt,
It seems like bread has gotten a bad rap lately, but really you can have healthy bread, muffins, etc.
Oh yeah, I still eat my bread. Yeah, there's plenty you can do with bread recipes nowadays. Yep. I'm still fighting to get my my Biga loaves and my sourdough loaves with some whole wheat. I'm still playing around with that. They're not, I can't get, if I go too high on that, it ruins it. But otherwise, there's tons of whole wheat options. Or other grains, really, lots of other whole grains. All right, this is good. It's just 1 cup of blueberries. So that's good. Okay. I don't want to overmix it. So I just plop them in here. Let me get this mixer out of the way because I don't want it to fall on the ground. All right. So I just take what I usually do. I usually just evenly distribute 1 scoop, so and then evenly distribute another scoop as best I can. So they're the same size. When they're the same size, it's just easier to keep things consistent when they're baking. So if you have a couple small ones, they're going to be overdone, sometimes that works out because like my mom likes things burned basically. So she always gets the small burned ones. So, all right. And I've got my silicone liners, short 3 of them. So I have some paper liners here too. I really don't like paper liners. So I just ordered some more silicone liners. If you've been in my classes before when I've used these liners, number 1 piece of advice I could give is make sure you take them off before you put your rest of your muffin in the trash, your plate in the trash. Hence we're down to 9 versus 12. I've learned once they get to room temperature, I just take off the silicone on all of them. So I don't have to worry about people accidentally throwing them out. But you can find some really cute silicone liners. So they're great for parties or gatherings though, if you want like a special red, white, and blue look to it. What I don't like about paper liners is, for one, they can sometimes stick into your muffin, so they're hard to get off. And they just kind of melt into your muffin. I just don't like the things, chemicals melting into my batter. And I have not had any problem with these silicone liners. They seem to really stay intact. I don't feel like anything's gone into my muffin as far as chemicals go. But that's just been my experience. I hope the brand I'm trying this time is just as good as the other one I got, because I don't know what brand I got, but these have stood up really, really well for years. Always check for little cracks or worn out areas of your silicone liners or your silicone mats, whatever you're using. Because once you see them starting to wear out, that means there could be chemicals leaking through and you don't want to use them anymore. So I actually quit using silicone mats for my baking. I just use parchment now, which probably has its own issues, but I just feel like it's better for me. I use unbleached parchment paper. So. All right, we're getting some pretty good amounts here. See, it's very fluffy, isn't it? That's nice and light batter. Yep. Almost done here. They smell really good. I think that was a good idea to do more cinnamon. You could do nutmeg, you know, there's lots of options. Allspice, if you want a little more flavor. All right, so we're good. My oven's ready at 400. And one reason I'm making these first is that the next recipe is at 350, but that's not a bad thing that it's not the same temperature when I first put in the savory muffins. And I'll tell you why later when we go over muffin facts. So keep you in suspense. Unless you already know the answer. All right. So any questions on that muffin? Or anything in general? Comments? I'll check chat. Let me get my paper towel. See anything here? Got some things in the chat. Let me cover that first. Oh, banana and blueberry muffins. Yep, that is a good one. Okay. All right. Same with the silicone splatters. Oh, got chipped. Oh, for the silicone, would that be the same for the splatters? I have one that got chipped out of a can when I was taking some beans out of the can. Yeah, anything with silicone in general, once it starts to wear out, I just toss them. I don't keep them around. So maybe not as much risk when you're not baking with it, but still there's still silicone in there leaking out eventually somehow if you're washing with it with water gets on it or something. I wouldn't keep anything that's not intact if it's silicone. That's just what I say, but I don't know the real science in that. But as far as when you use it for that, but I wouldn't keep it. Okay, let me get the eggs out of the way. All right, so then let me go to, oh, you know what? I don't have another muffin tin anyway, do I? Let me check. I gotta see if I have another muffin tin. I thought I did. All right. So we're just gonna, I can't believe I didn't think of that. We're gonna make this batter. We could do mini muffins. I could do it in a mini muffin, but let's see how these are doing before I decide to do that. Cause I'd like to bake those for you, you know, in class.
So Pam, on one of the questions I asked, can you use avocado in a recipe that doesn't ask for avocado? Would that make a big difference? Can you do that?
I don't know enough yet with baking with avocado because it definitely adds more moisture. So you'd have to play around. If it's not a recipe that calls for it, you'd probably have to play around with taking out some of the other moisture that's called for the recipe.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But you can find, I'm telling you can find a muffin recipe that uses avocado. You know, carrot muffins with avocado. Yep, you know, bran muffin with avocado. Got it. You know, it's everywhere. So otherwise, yeah, I would just watch your hydration. Okay. So we're gonna do the savory vegetable. This is called a savory vegetable muffin. So I think this was a different experience, especially for the family that's expecting a sweet muffin, because muffins you think sweet. So going into this, you got to remember it's not going to be sweet for those of you that are used to a sweet muffin. However, it's such a healthy muffin that I'm trying it again with tweaking a couple things to see if I can trick them into going along with this. So it has broccoli, carrots, zucchini, avocado oil or olive oil, whole wheat flour, and it still has a good texture and a good taste if you're ready for more of a savory taste, like a biscuit, more of like, you know, with a dinner biscuit, you'd have this muffin instead. They're easier to make them biscuits to me because you don't have to do the folding and all that laminating. And just another nice option. You just put them in a muffin tin, you're good to go. And And, you know, or it's really, to me, it could be a breakfast, a quick breakfast if you're not a big breakfast eater, because it's got all those vegetables and has cheese in it. If you don't mind cheese, cheddar cheese, you can switch out the cheese. So anyway, lots, fully packed with lots of nutrients. So I'm gonna make these, and they're just gonna have to deal with it. So this, I'm gonna start with, I think it's just for the dry, it's 1.5 cups of whole wheat. Now we're getting into the red grain, seed, or I can't, red grain of the whole wheat flour family. So this is brown, a little more heavy, a little more dense, but it worked well. I was curious if I'd want to switch this out. I'm going to stick with the 100% whole wheat, but you could switch it out if you'd like. And then the typical, just about every quick bread muffin recipe, the powdered baking powder, baking soda, and some salt. And what I'm not going to add this time out here is the onion powder. It called for onion powder. I don't think it needed it. It's not the flavor I needed, you could say. And I'm not going to do the Italian seasoning either, although that was fine. But what I wanted to do today is do some dill. I don't know, maybe it'll be great, because I had some fresh dill from a class yesterday, if you were there. Salads. What I made yesterday, I made some salads that used fresh dill, and I like dill. So I'm thinking, you know what, since we have this, and I wasn't a big fan of the onion powder, let's try some dill in here. So I'm actually going to put it into the dry ingredients, because I think if I put it into the wet ingredients, it'll just clump up too much. I'm going to do this. You see, I'm whisking all the dry ingredients. Let me make sure I got all the dry ingredients before I put in the dill, though. Yep. All right, so I'm not going to go too big on the dill, because I don't know what really will happen to the flavoring, but I'm just going to do this. You just take off the lighter, more delicate part of the herb here, not the thicker stem or rooty kind of woody texture, they call it. Just the nice delicate parts of the dill.
So Pam, this probably won't be ready during class today for you to taste it and tell us what you thought. Could you put it in the class notes and say whether you liked it with the dill or not?
Well, yeah, I sure could. That's a great idea. I could say, stop, don't do the dill. Stick with the Italian seasoning and onion powder. Or if you all try a different seasoning, I would love to know. I mean, with a savory, there's all those savory herbs you could try. So I'm gonna do a little bit more.
Well, I think dill would work better than thyme, fresh thyme, or fresh rosemary. So that's just how I'm thinking right now. Could be wrong. I've been wrong before. One time.
One time. We'll see how this goes. I'm concerned they're not broken up enough to disperse too much. I want to take the whole class doing the little breakup of the dill. Okay, I think that'll be all right. Okay, so then we're going to get to the other ingredients, which is combine, let's see, except vegetables in medium bowl. Okay, so what we're gonna do, except vegetable and cheese in a medium bowl. Okay, so they're having me put in all of the ingredients except vegetable and cheese. So this was also, that's right, because I was thinking this is almost like a 1 bowl bake. They call them like 1 bowl breads, or there's a new thing out called 1 bowl whatever. So it's supposed to sound like it's easier. You know, and there's not as many bowls to clean, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. I'm going to put in everything but the vegetable and cheese. So that means the avocado. Okay, so we're going to put avocado oil, rather, 1/4 cup of that. That's what I used for honey. I probably don't want to do that. I'm going to put in the milk then, so I can use the cup I used for the milk, because it requires, here's another nutrient, nutritious punch with milk. Whole cup of milk of choice, it says. I have baked with oat milk and I've had good results. I'm just using cow's milk today. Now I'm going to pour in 1/4 cup of avocado oil. I like avocado oil. It's very mild. So if you want more flavor, I would recommend the extra virgin olive oil. It has a little more flavor than the avocado. All right, and then 2 eggs. I know I got eggs out for this one. There they are. One, oh, there's a loose shell. Oh, there's another. Okay, good thing it's in a separate bowl this time. Oh, they're all, they stayed attached. You know, getting little pieces of eggshell is such a pain, isn't it?
Yeah,
There
I
we
thought
go.
there was a certain way to crack eggs so that you wouldn't get shells. I don't remember
Yeah.
now.
I think, well, for one thing, you're supposed to crack them on the surface, I think, too. That might-
Right, instead of
yeah.
like the edge of the counter like I usually do.
I know, but I've messed up my countertop so many times doing that. I just, I'll go back and forth, I guess. So,
Then if
All
you
right.
get eggshell in there, you can use the half of the egg shell to take the shell out of the dish, or whatever you do.
scoop it out with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's like it kind of attaches itself back to it.
Oh, does
Yeah.
it really? Go back
Yeah,
to its
yeah, yeah. It's
I've heard
easier to
that.
get out that way. Yeah, it
you.
works.
Great. Oh, thank you. I needed a tip like that because that happens a lot for me. All right. So let's see. Da-da. Okay, I think that's everything. Let me go over it one more time to make sure I got everything but the vegetables and cheese. Yep. So I'm going to combine them. You know, I'm going to rinse this off. So just a second here. Okay. I do like wooden spoons. I do think though, because I just feel like it's a little more authentic, but I do find that silicone does a good job of not sticking to the ingredients. So you don't have to keep mixing it to get it off and then mix that in like where it sticks. So it does seem like it's easy. It's better for not over mixing to use the silicone mix spoons, but I like the wooden spoons. So just gently here. It's pretty wet. The batter is pretty wet. And I was worried it wouldn't have a good rise, but it did. I'll show you the muffins I have done. It did give a nice muffin top. All right, that's good. Yep. Okay, now we get to all these vegetables to add. And it just says chopped, I think. Let's see, just, oh, well, chopped for the broccoli florets. So here's my broccoli. I just chopped them relatively small, but they did melt in really well. There weren't any big chunks of broccoli, but I cut them up, chopped them up about this small. You can see that for the most part. And that was small enough. And put those in. And then you have to grate carrots and zucchini and read the recipe, because sometimes you'll find a recipe, my apron's driving me crazy, that wants you to pat out the water. Sometimes they don't, because they want that moisture in the batter or dough, whatever you're making. So this one wants you to pat out the water, because as this is already a very wet dough or batter. So I am going to pat it out like it said. So know that when you have vegetables, you might not always pat them. Sometimes you might want that hydration in there. I'm just gonna do this. And I saved this carrot. Has anybody seen these purple carrots? And the inside, look at that. It's like a little, inside is all orangey
That's
yellow.
weird. Does it taste the same?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's organic, so it's not like something went crazy wrong, or maybe it did. I don't know. Yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting.
It's not
was-
red dye, right?
No, it's organic. It's Annie's organic, or not Annie's, some brand I've seen out there. Earthbound Farms Organic, I think. So had purple, orange, and those almost white carrots, very like a cream colored carrot. So I'm gonna see if that adds some color to the muffin too, because I didn't have these last time I made them. All right, so we're just gonna put that in there. Just grated it. The bowl over here. And just kind of shake them off, really. Good. All right, and I think I mix this in. Oh, and shredded cheese. Okay. I had the recipe calls for shredded cheese. I was good with the shredded cheddar cheese rather. and I was good with the cheddar flavor. You could certainly do something else, or, you know, if you omitted the cheese, I'm not sure how that would affect the muffin. If you need to add something else or not, because there's a little hydration in cheese too, and there's some bulk to it. So I'm not sure if you could just add some more. Zucchini, carrot. I don't know about broccoli. So that would I have to think about. All right. So you can see it looks like a salad with a bunch of batter around it. It's really colorful, but it's really interesting too to be a muffin. So you could do this as a quick bread. That's another option too. So that might not be a bad idea. So actually, that's not a bad idea. It still wouldn't be. Oh yeah, we're already at 11, almost 11:40. It's nothing. It won't be done for sure by the time class is over. But you know what? I think I am going to put it in the oven as a quick loaf. So that is something, you know, well, I know this is baking muffins, but do you mind if I put in a bread loaf pan?
Sounds good, because that's what I was thinking, the loaf pan.
Yeah, that's an option. Let's just do that today. Do that. And I do have some finished muffins I can show you. So it's not like we're totally ignoring the muffin concept with this recipe, right? So I've got my USA pan. I think with the amount of batter, I'm going to try an 8x4 pan. So it's a little bit taller. But you could do, all you gotta do is just watch for it to be done. You know, 9x5 will be quicker because it'll be spread out more. But I'm going to do it in an 8x4. I'm going to get my coconut oil. I like to line things with coconut oil. And I'm going to do that first. And then I'm going to put parchment paper in here so I can pull that loaf out more easily. But the coconut oil actually helps the parchment paper. And this can work for muffin liners too, if you're using a parchment paper liner or something like that. Put a little either coconut oil or butter or something first, because then it helps the paper stay. I mean, how many times have you tried to fill a muffin liner and the paper's going everywhere when you're trying to fill the batter, or the same thing if you have parchment paper for a loaf of bread, quick bread, typically, it just drives you crazy because it goes everywhere. This sometimes, usually, I should say, helps just kind of keep it in place a little bit. Not like a magic cure-all, but it definitely helps. So I've got that ready. I'm going to get some parchment paper. You can see the unbleached parchment paper I have. And this might be on its last leg. I reuse my parchment paper as much as I can. But not as wasteful as well. And I'm going to actually fold it the other way so there's no seam in the pan. And do this. That's why I have to make sure these sides are really well greased up, because I'm not going to have a parchment paper there. And just fold it over. And then I'll put the batter in there. And when it's done, see how it's staying down better? I don't really care about the sides out here. It's not popping back up, but that coconut oil. It's helping. It's almost a little bit like an adhesive, just a little. And then I'm just going to put in the batter. And this might take a while, because it's got a lot to work with in there, right? All those vegetables and cheese, and it's going to be a lot thicker than a muffin. So I'll have to let you know how this goes, right? The baking and the taste. I think when you bake it as a muffin, it's 350, and it's for 20 to 22 minutes, which is on the longer side for a muffin. All right, so we're going to do this. It's still, 8x4 was probably the right choice, because it's still not a whole lot in there. I'll show you what it looks like. It's not going in yet, but that's what it's going to look like before it goes in. And I'll have to pretend what it looks like afterwards by going by what the muffin looks like. Okay. So with that, that's everything for those two recipes. I'll show you the muffins. Let me check these though. These might be done. So let me get a toothpick. Yeah, these are definitely done. Might have been over by a minute or two. I got distracted. I forgot to check. So they're a little bit done, more done. My mom will like those. And I'm gonna put the other pan in here with the bread. And I will turn it down to 350. But I'll tell you why I was gonna leave it at 400 if it was a muffin in just a second here. So here's the blueberry. Again, probably 2 minutes too long, but not burned, just a little more well done on the top. But see how they popped up pretty nicely. So, okay. All right. They smell very, very good. Okay, let me check chat here and see if there's any other thing. Any other comments or questions so far? That last recipe?
They look good. The
Well,
muffins
thanks.
look good.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that result. They got even higher today for some reason. So that's good. I like a good top, muffin top. All right. Well, I will, while that's baking, I will share my screen again. We'll talk about I was going to talk about the flowers a little bit. We touched on that somewhat. And an avocado, just to see what's so great about these avocados that we're seeing everywhere nowadays. So the whole wheat flour, this one here, I was just going to mention the whole wheat pastry flour. That's typically what I use for these kind of recipes, but it didn't call for it. So I stick with what the recipe says. I got good results. I don't think I had to go with the whole wheat pastry flour for these recipes, but that's an even lighter whole wheat flour. It still has the same nutrients, but it's even more like a pastry flour, the real light, flour for your baked goods like biscuits, scones, that kind of thing. It's great for scones. And it's hard to find. So if you can't find it, it's understandable. One of our health food stores carries it. Otherwise, I do use it enough. I get it online. I'll get a box of it, like a big 6-pack or something at a time. That's the only way I've seen how to get it though. Besides the health food store up north in Michigan, for some reason carries this, which is great, but it's hard to find elsewhere. So then we have this white whole wheat here that I use today. That would be my second choice for if you needed to use you wanted to use the whole wheat, that would be go back to this one. And then lastly, this is the whole wheat flour. These are all King Arthur's. It's just any brand's fine as far as, I shouldn't say any brand's fine, in my opinion. Look for quality because it does make a difference in your baking. So like Bob's Red Mill's great, King Arthur's great. There's probably some other ones out there I'm just not seeing in the stores as much. But even when you look at whole wheat flour with store brand versus a quality brand, you'll see the whole wheat flour has some other things in it that the quality brand doesn't, just for whole wheat flour. So I know it's expensive nowadays though. So I'm not going 100% everything right now as far as quality, just because it's just too expensive. But where you can pick and choose, if you can pick a better quality flour, that's great. Okay.
That whole white wheat flour, that's hard to find too. I found it one time and I'm not sure which store I found it at. And it's like, I keep looking for that, and that one's hard to find too, here in Vegas.
In Vegas, okay, because the weirdest thing is our Target consistently carries that flour. I don't know why, but every time I see it, I at least buy 1 or 2 bags. I don't want to clean them out because it's not fair. But Target will.
We're gonna have to check our Target. Okay. Yeah.
Your Target, yeah. But our typical grocery store, like the main one, doesn't. So I don't know. You're right. It is hard to find too. So. All right. Oh, look at that. I didn't know it did this fancy thing. Huh, who knew? Okay, well, there you go. Just tell I can do about the whole wheat has all parts of the grain. That's the one I just talked about. I had no idea it did this. That's really cool. Okay, nice effect there on the slide. Okay, about avocados. Well, let's see if it does this again. Oh, look at that. High in vitamin C, E, K, magnesium, folate, tons of other nutrients. And usually you can figure out how to get avocado into your diet, even if you're not a fan of avocado, because you can see is just mixed right into these muffins. You can mix them into brownies, you can mix them into smoothies, and they really don't have a overpowering taste. And I mean, maybe some of you don't agree, and that's understandable, but in my experience, you just don't, it doesn't take over everything, and it's so nutritious. And grams of fiber, does anybody, I think that's the next bullet point, if not, we'll figure it out. Does anybody know how many grams of fiber one avocado has? I was shocked. Let me see if it's the next one. Yeah, about 14 grams per avocado. I had no idea. I had to read that twice. That's a lot of fiber in one avocado. Medium size, I'm assuming. It didn't say what size, but yeah, your average avocado. All right, and it's just so versatile. I was just saying you can just about put it in anything. So that would be good to know. If we added an avocado to our regular recipe, what would we need to change, right? So that I should look into that. All right, let's see what the chat, anything from Andrea. Could you add protein powder to the mix? I'm thinking you mean the green smoothie looking mix for the first, well, either one really. Protein powder, I don't know much about protein powder, so I don't know how it would affect your baked good. So I think that's just something you'd have to try if you'd like to see what it would do. If it's a lot of it, you might need to add a little bit more hydration, one of the fluids to help with the dry powder you added. Other than that, I don't know. There's more nutrition for you though, right?
Could you, like, if it calls for a tablespoon, take a tablespoon of the flour out and use a tablespoon of the protein?
You could try that, yeah. If the protein acts the same when it encounters water, like I don't know, it dissolves the same and that kind of thing, but that's a good way to start. Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So here are muffin facts, right? Commonly asked questions. Can you make batter in advance? If anybody knows or wants to say anything, please chime in. Well, you can. In fact, some recipes highly recommend letting it sit overnight because that helps it. Let's see, it's the best thing you can do for amazing muffins. It makes them more moist, tender, and taller. That's one way to get those super high muffins. You can let the batter sit overnight. So that's one thing you can do. Should muffin tins be lined? That's asked a lot. I always do because it seems like I need so much greasing on the muffin tins. It's such a pain, and it just it almost gives the muffin an oilier taste than I want, or too much butter that it requires. So I do line them, and that's why I like those silicone liners. They come off really easily too, the silicone liners. There's no, I mean, this might be ready to come off actually. They've sat long enough. Let me see. You can see how they just come right off. That's the silicone liner. So, all right. And then, what is the ideal amount of batter for a standard cup? Two-thirds to three-fourths full. I usually do about three-fourths. You can see they're almost full, really. You know, it's just how you want it, how big you want your muffins. Sometimes it's nice to have smaller muffins because you don't want to always eat a full muffin. You just have to watch your baking time. So, all right. And what causes those holes or tunnels in those muffins? We talked about it a little bit. Does everybody remember?
Is it the lumps in the flour?
No.
Overmixing.
Yeah, the overmixing. It's a big problem. We have a big problem with overmixing. So you just got to be real gentle. And like I said, just once you think it's all mixed up, don't keep going at it. So you'll get a funny texture. All right. And how about this? How do I keep fruit from sinking in my muffins? I didn't do that today. I didn't really need to. It worked out okay, but it's not a bad idea for this little tip here. Does anybody know?
Mix a little flour in them, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yep. And I wonder, you could even, I would guess you could reserve some flour from your recipe to do that with, so you're not adding extra flour. You could just.
That's usually what I do.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah. All right. Does anybody else have any muffin tips, how to make muffins or what?
The
anything else
last one was how to keep fruit from sinking in your muffin.
Yeah. Yep. That one was, you can roll your berries or whatever in flour, toss them in flour beforehand, before you put them in.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And what about the bakery style muffin? Did you answer that one?
Oh, no, and that was the fun one. No, thanks for catching that. All right. So one way is to let it rest overnight. As I mentioned, that's one way to get it really tall. And this is, I'm glad you mentioned that because this is what I was going to talk about. One way to do it, and this works, is you put it at a higher heat, like 425 for, what was it, like 6 to 9 minutes at the higher heat for 6 to 9 minutes at 425. Then you bring it down to 350. So that's what I was going to do if I made these into muffins, is let that stay at 400. I was going to up it to 425 for a few minutes, 6 to 9 minutes rather, and then bring it back down to 350. And it does work. It does make it a little higher. So that's
Oh, I'm gonna have to try that. Thanks.
yeah, and it's for any recipe. No, I've seen one recipe that ever suggests that. So just do it even if your recipe doesn't mention it, because I've not seen a recipe it ruins. So
Now, can you do this in an air fryer oven?
I would think so. I've baked muffins in my toaster air fryer muffin before, just the normal way, but I haven't tried it with the 425 before, but I would if you wanted to. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the other thing too. You could save, if you're just doing like a six muffins or something at a time baking, you can split your batter in half and let it sit in the fridge overnight and bake the other one the next night and see what difference, how much taller it is, right? When you refrigerate your batter for a night. That would be an interesting experiment. Do they make though? I don't know if they make six muffin tins. For
Yeah,
6?
they do. They do. I
Okay.
have a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good way to do it. All right. So I think
I've
that-
even used the little silicone cups you have
Mhm.
and use 6 of those and put it in in a little quarter sheet pan and sat them in there and cooked the cornbread muffins like that.
And it held its shape, right?
Was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Yep, those are convenient. Yeah, Phyllis.
I just recently read on Facebook a hint for baking cupcakes, and it might work with muffins, and it takes up less space, is to put the rings from a quart jar
Uh-huh.
in the pan and put your muffin cups in there. Takes up less space. You could bake them more at a time.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I bet it's a special runnier batter, but a lot of muffin batters that would be very, very handy for too. The
Mhm.
rings, the jar rings you said?
Jar rings,
Great.
you know.
Yep.